Hello! Welcome to Creative Saskatchewan's Digital Game Development Grant Guideline Walkthrough. These guidelines are specific to the 2023-2024 fiscal year. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge that Creative Saskatchewan supports creative entrepreneurs throughout the entire province of Saskatchewan in Treaties 2, 4, 5, 6, 8, and 10, which encompasses the unceded territories of the Nehiyawak, Anishinaabe, Dakota, Lakota, Nakota, and Dene nations, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. Our office is located in the John Hopkins Regina Soundstage Building in Regina, Saskatchewan on Treaty 4 territory. So a bit more about the Digital Game Development Grant. The Digital Game Development Grant Program invests in Saskatchewan's digital developers, helping them create digital games and gamified e-learning projects with commercial potential. Eligible projects include apps for smartphones and tablets, console or PC games, and augmented or virtual reality experiences. Projects focused on education or training are welcome as long as the experience has been gamified, meaning users will feel like they are playing a game. So how does our investment work? Well, funding will be in the form of a grant. Applicants to this specific program can apply for a maximum of $100,000 or 50% of the total cash budget, whichever is the lesser, for one application or the entire life of the project. The way those funds are released is that applicants receive 80% upfront and then the final 20% upon completion of their final report and the end of the project. So who is eligible for Creative Saskatchewan funding? Well, applicants must meet the criteria in both our general program guidelines as well as the program-specific guidelines. So if you haven't already, be sure to take a deep dive into the general program guidelines, which are available on our website. You must be an individual who's a Saskatchewan resident or a corporation whose majority shares are owned by Saskatchewan residents. And finally, you must own or co-own the project, control copyright, and receive a share of revenue from sales. Deadlines and processing times. This program has one deadline. That's coming up next month, October 25th, 2023. All deadlines close at 4 p.m. Saskatchewan time, and applicants can expect to receive their results within 10 weeks from the deadline date. One thing to note is that if a deadline falls on a stat holiday or a weekend, applications will be accepted until 4 p.m. the following business day. Let's a little bit deeper into eligible projects and expenses. So this program supports expenses related to creating digital games and e-learning properties that are aimed for commercial exploitation. E-learning projects must include gamification, game mechanics that add interactivity, engagement, and motivate the user in learning. The core product must be intended to entertain or educate the user. And technology infrastructure is eligible, both hardware and software. Eligible concept design and prototype development expenses occurring up to 6 months before the application date can be included in the application. This includes concepts, prototypes, project management. Marketing expenses directly related to the project being applied for, no more than 10% of the total project budget. Great, now that we've done eligible, let's take a look at ineligible projects and expenses. So core business operations or capital expenditures such as rent, purchase of real estate, and maintenance costs are not eligible. Projects developed exclusively for corporate use, where the applicant no longer owns the intellectual property. Video content creation for streaming services, broadcast, or theatrical release. Casino-type games with real or simulated gambling. Some additional ineligible expenses include deferrals and in-kind expenses, projects primarily intended to sell products or services, projects primarily intended for interpersonal communication, travel expenses and/or fees to attend conferences or markets. And if you want to see a complete list of ineligible expenses, be sure to check out those general program guidelines. Let's take a look at the assessment criteria. This is how your application is being scored. First, we've got the design and technical elements. So in this section, you'll want to describe the design elements in the programming, the user experience and interactivity. Remember to upload your visual design, concept design, storyboards, etc. Next, your marketing strategy. Here you'll want to provide a marketing and promotional strategy. Make sure to include your distribution modes, diversity and relevance of each model, the relevance of promotional activities, the level of interest by market channel partners, and/or the quality of your self-distribution plan. Then you've got your team. This section is broken up into two. First, we've got your personnel, where you'll want to describe the experience and achievements of project producers and management staff, creative and technical staff, contractors, and the marketing, promotion, sales staff, contractors. And then you've got the studio. Here you'll want to describe the experience and achievements of the studio and the commercial success of any previous projects. You've got your level of Saskatchewan spend. So here, if you're spending 50 to 75% in Saskatchewan, you get 1 point. If you're spending 75% or more in Saskatchewan, you get 2 points. The financial viability of the project. Here you'll want to describe the financial stability in relation to the size of the project. How will the applicant finance the project and cash flow at each phase? Assessors will analyze the proposed budget, financial structure risk, and the project's completion risk. That equals a total of 40 points. Now, in addition to those 40 points, there are some bonus points applicants may achieve. First, it would be for the budget and financing. So any project with third-party investment will automatically receive some bonus points. Agreements do need to be uploaded to your application in order to receive these points, and they can vary anywhere from 1 to 5 points depending on the percent of third-party investment. So for example, if you've got 10 to 14%, you'll receive 1 bonus point. If you've got 30% or more, you'll receive all 5 points. Next, there are bonus points awarded for diversity, equity and inclusion, and parity. So if any key project team member self-identifies as Indigenous, a racialized person, or a disabled person, you will receive 2 bonus points. Right, so the assessment process. What happens once you submit your application? Step 1, an initial review is done by Creative Saskatchewan staff. This is where we take a look over your application, make sure the costs you've included are all eligible, make sure the application is complete. Step 2, internal ratings are then provided by Creative Saskatchewan. So not all of the assessment criteria is done by the assessors. The level of Saskatchewan spend and those bonus points we talked about for budget and financing and diversity are all done internally. Step 3 would be the assessment panel of external reviewers to finalize the scores and recommend the applications for funding. Additional interactive funding supports. So the Digital Game Development Grant is not the only grant for the interactive sector. Market and export development, both micro and major. This grant helps cover the cost of marketing your product or business. Creative Saskatchewan offers 2 streams of funding to spend depending on the scale of the project. We've got major up to $50,000 and micro up to $5,000. We've got some deadlines approaching here, October 25th for the major, and then micro has November 22nd and February 7th. Then we've got the research grant. The research grant is intended to support your efforts to better understand, interpret, and capitalize on market forces affecting your creative sector. That one's got a deadline coming up on October 25th of 2023. Business capacity. The business capacity grant can help you expand or become more efficient. Your project will focus on developing business knowledge, improved efficiency, expanded workforce capacity, and business skills that result in growth, market expansion, and improve profitability. That one also has a deadline coming up of October 25th. And finally, there's the market travel grant. This one's got a continuous intake until our funding for this fiscal is exhausted. So this grant helps cover the cost of travel expenses to specific market opportunities. In most cases, this project will begin with an invitation to participate in a particular market. All of these programs do have their own guidelines, so I would take a deeper dive into those project-specific guidelines as well. A quick guideline review of the Digital Game Development Grant. Here's our contact information. We've got an amazing team of program advisors who are always happy to chat about your projects. If you have questions on eligibility, guidelines, anything really, we love hearing from you. So you can reach out to our office and they can connect you with a program advisor if you have any questions. Never miss an update. The best way to stay up to date on our programs is to sign up for our newsletter, The Spotlight. Make sure you're following us on social media. We post there a lot about changes to the programs or upcoming deadlines. And finally, thank you for checking out this webinar. We're hoping to release these guideline walkthroughs for all of our programs. Hopefully they make it easier for some folks to understand what goes into a grant, how the process works. I invite you to join us on September 29th at noon over Zoom. We'll be doing a live Q&A with a previous recipient of the Digital Game Development Grant, along with a program advisor from Creative Saskatchewan. So if you have questions that weren't answered in this session, please join us for that live Q&A. We'll be answering those questions directly, and good luck with your application.